The null hypothesis, testing the wrong to confirm the right. Hey dude, we don't understand statistics, man. Yeah, like if you want to prove something, you're supposed to try to prove the opposite.
Yes, well that's how it's done.
But why? That don't make no sense.
Please, sir, can you explain it to us?
Okay, I'll share my screen. First, what is a hypothesis? It's an assumption or prediction or statement about the outcome of some scientific test. We state this hypothesis before the test. Hypothesis testing is an important part of statistics. The goal is to make a decision to accept or reject some hypothesis. How does one choose the hypothesis to test? Suppose an engineer wants to test if changing A changes B. The engineer is inclined to test this hypothesis, changing A changes B. The statistician has the same question, but he or she tests the opposite hypothesis, changing A does not change B. The alternative or research hypothesis is the theory or claim that you actually want to test. The null hypothesis is the opposite of this. It's the null hypothesis that we actually test with statistics. The goal is to see how unlikely it is that the null hypothesis is true. We calculate the probability, and if it's lower than some value, we reject the null hypothesis, which means that we accept the research hypothesis. Here are some examples. Does aspirin reduce the likelihood of heart attacks? The engineer wants to test this hypothesis. Taking 1 aspirin per day provides a significant reduction in heart attack. That's what we're trying to prove. The statistician specifies this null hypothesis. Taking 1 aspirin per day does not provide a significant decrease in heart attack. This is what we actually test with statistics. Another example. Does gas mileage improve by removing weight from a car? The engineer would test this hypothesis, what we actually want to prove. The statistician tests the null hypothesis. Removing weight from a car provides no significant increase in gas mileage. That's what we actually test. Hypothesis testing has 4 steps. Determine the null hypothesis. Collect data and form a test statistic. That's some measure of how our results compare with what's expected if the null hypothesis were true. One example is the t-score. Then we determine how unlikely the test score would be if the null hypothesis were true. This unlikelihood is expressed as the probability value or the p-value. We make a decision to accept or reject based on the p-value. The larger the test statistic, the smaller the p-value. The decision to accept or reject is based on some critical value of the p-value. In summary, engineers think in terms of a research hypothesis. Statisticians think in terms of a null hypothesis, the opposite of the research hypothesis. In statistical analysis, the null hypothesis is tested, not the research hypothesis. The goal is to determine how unlikely that the null hypothesis is true. If the probability that the null hypothesis is true is lower than some set criterion, the null hypothesis is rejected and the alternative hypothesis is accepted.
I still don't get it. Don't make no sense to me. Me neither. I get it, dudes. You just have to think opposite.
Yes, opposite, like good and bad.
Like light and dark. Like easy and hard. Like cool and nerdy, man.
What's the probability that I end up with such strange students?
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more educational videos.